It is 8:32, and as co-chair of the task force, I call this meeting to order. Welcome one and all. We were going to take a picture this morning for the town's annual report, trying to get ahead of the game. But given how few of us are actually physically present in the room, I propose that we hold off probably until early January. The town meeting contributions are not due until the middle of January, so that will give us time to do that. I then turn to the next item on the agenda, which is consideration of the draft minutes from from November 13. That's a wrong typo. Good morning, John. I know that we received, at least I saw them this morning, comments from John overnight on the minutes. Rich, you have seen those as well, correct? So in the paragraph entitled review of secondary data on housing cost burdens, John suggests that in the second sentence beginning, he walked through the initial assumptions in this model and draws the analysis suggested is the proposed revision. In the next sentence, he proposes to write, he noted the housing production plan noted a much higher share of housing cost, and inserts 50% after rental units and 26% after homeowners. So that clarifies information in that sentence. And then in the next sentence, beginning by subtracting the number of housing cost stressed renters, at the end, instead of he concludes, he writes that the math showed that 70% of homeowners who receive the RTE are not housing cost stressed.
I think my broadest point was I didn't conclude anything from that data. I didn't want anyone to think I was concluding stuff.
Okay, all right. You were presenting information.
Presenting some information.
Yeah.
No, I think so.
Does anyone else have comments on our draft minutes from November 13?
Move to approve with John's amendments.
Second? All in favor? And joining us online, Abby, Ellen, Shannon, do you approve as amended?
Yes.
Yes.
Ellen, we need to hear an aye from you. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm teasing you, Ellen.
Yeah, she has laryngitis. So that's not fair.
Yes.
A thumbs up in this case will do. Thanks one and all. The minutes have been approved. As part of Chair's report, I wanted to indicate that perhaps following the tax classification hearing, we received a flurry of communications from people, which is great. It's wonderful that the public is following our work and is treating us as a reference point. However, I will indicate that it made me nervous to present. I'll give you a flavor of these correspondences. I don't think the task force should speak on behalf of the assessor's office. And in each case, I referred them to a relevant web page or a relevant email address. One person was asking, I'm trying to find out where to apply for the RTE on the website and having no luck. Another person said, am I correct that current RTE recipients need not reapply? And a third letter was, can you please tell me if our property is registered for the RTE? So in none of these cases do I feel we are the authority who can respond.
Valid questions.
Totally. Then we also received a number of other more complicated, longer emails. One from someone who recommends, and I should have distributed this to everyone, I will after the meeting, one who asks for particular kinds of analysis that be done as we proceed in our work, and I'll share that with you all later. That's good input. Another person who found that the survey used biased and misleading language and therefore told us that he would not be participating in the survey. And again, important feedback from a fellow member of the town. And then I did circulate the message from Littleton's Peter Barbella. He's a member of their Board of Assessors and was referring us to a new House bill, House 3004, inviting us to consider it and perhaps suggest that Concord support it. It's a little bit different than what we currently do under our senior means tested exemption, They're trying to mandate something similar, I think. But again, it would provide tax relief for seniors only, not for other members of the town. I don't know if anyone wants to comment. I did distribute that correspondence earlier.
I couldn't see that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean,
Check later.
Yeah,
but I don't
here,
remember,
just
but that's okay.
take it. I can print it out again.
Okay.
See how that would, they filed was really any different than what Bedford did, which is that?
Which is 41C and a half.
C and a half,
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, it's elder, it's no asset limit.
Right.
And it's the income limit is
Same as the circuit breaker.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Yeah,
yeah. So I mean, I didn't want to respond, but
no,
on the other hand, I'm wondering, hold it. You know,
why do they need it?
you've already got the authority to do that.
Right, right. Yeah, I didn't feel the need to respond. Ellen, I think you had reached out to him. I don't know if you continue to engage with him by email. Okay, all right. Anyway, interesting observation. Interesting to know that Littleton is also looking at options for property tax relief. Should we want to reach out to them subsequently, we can.
And, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, so the guy who was complaining about the bias,
yes,
thought that the word burden was biased, and he
Yes.
thought that burdened, if you have a lot of money, meant a lot different than you had little. I told him, and I think this is important for our final report, that we had the thought of, do you feel burdened, but also the ability to calculate what percent of your income rent and housing cost is. So I think that's important to point out.
Yes.
He's
yeah.
still-
I think it was important feedback for us to take into account when we write our final report.
Yeah, he
I
even-
appreciate that he wrote us.
Yeah, even though I told him that, he still refused to fill it out.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things where thank you. We are not the first people to use that language ever, and so no language is perfect in any survey or anything. And we have an N of 1, so while we can of course say something, I just want to caution that like we didn't make up random words or weren't careful in their selection. It's not like so. Sure, valid point. And there are, I don't know how many people who have taken it and not given us that feedback. And so,
I mean, it's perfectly valid for him to have that reaction and express it to us and, so.
yeah, I just don't want to, I feel like I feel like in general, like my work group struggles with this too, especially if we get like a note on a paper of like taking a lot of airtime to address a single concern in a report or something. So I just want to be conscientious of that too.
I will also say that I have been, what happens is people are writing to our email address posted on our website, tretf@concordma.gov. It then gets forwarded to Ellen's and my personal email addresses. I had an experience a number of years ago when I was chair of the finance committee. That happened to be the year when the town was in an uproar about the school bus driver situation, and I overnight received over 1,000 emails to my work email address, which was appalling and difficult to manage and embarrassing in terms of my employer. That was the email address of record. So I'm reluctant to respond from my personal email address for fear of inviting a similar reaction. However, in the case of the easy to respond messages I just noted to you, I did write them from my Gmail address, my personal address, to forward them on to an authoritative source. Kristen in the town manager's office is working with Ellen and me to be able to respond from the TRETF email address. So hopefully in the future we can just write from there. Just wanted to let you all know that that's the solution we've come up with. Moving along, we do have a number of upcoming presentations by members of the board, or the task force rather, to select groups in the public. I know that you and Ellen are going to be speaking to residents at Concord Green on Monday, right?
Yeah,
And I know that,
actually it's being rescheduled, but
okay.
Yeah.
Later in the week
I
or,
think within a week or so, they're
Okay.
getting back to us.
okay. And I know that Ellen, assuming you can speak on Wednesday, Ellen, you and Rich are scheduled to give a 10-minute presentation to the Council on Aging before their holiday luncheon next Wednesday. I would have liked to have had a larger slice of time, but that's all they agreed to. I also was concerned because their monthly newsletter said absolutely nothing about it. And so I produced a one-page flyer printed on very bright green paper that I left for a staff person to hang in the halls and give out at lunch yesterday. So hopefully you'll have some people come and be interested. And I assume you're bringing extra copies of the extra paper copies of the survey. I don't know how many are left there.
You certainly should.
I have copies I can drop off. I'll drop some off at the Council on Aging today. I should
Perfect.
have some.
Okay.
Perfect, then they'll have them there. So these are part of our outreach efforts to A, explain what we're doing, B, try to encourage people to fill out the survey. I would invite other members of our task force, anyone but Ellen and I, who have both already written to the bridge. I would invite you to submit letters to the bridge in the next week so that we can get eyes on the subject again. If you would.
Yeah,
Yes, Dawn.
especially encouraging renters.
Yeah,
Yeah, the renters have.
yeah, encouraging renters would be great. So if there are a couple of letters that go out and she prints one each week, that would be great. But we only have 2 more weeks to fill this out. So actually, let's flood them.
Yeah, I think on the renter side of things, that is a big gap right now. We've got 35 responses. I reached out to.
Could you maybe write a letter specific to renters, and then Shannon or Abby, could you write a more general letter just encouraging participation? And I guess we should identify in the letter, I'm a member of the task force, blah, blah,
I'll
blah.
draft one and send it to you today.
Perfect. Great. Is that good, Ellen? Okay, thank you. Moving forward into the next section of our agenda, review of tax classification hearing. So we haven't had a chance to process what was presented to us by Meredith at the tax classification hearing to the select board. And I thought maybe we could take a few minutes to talk about things that you found interesting. And I'll start by saying, to me, the most interesting part of her presentation was she doesn't have slide numbers, was a slide entitled Fiscal Year 2026 Real Estate Tax Impact of the RTE, where she shows that of the grand total of 6,014 residential parcels in town, those qualifying for, to use her language, the RTE, totaled only 3,863. Of which 89% are parcels assessed at below the break-even point, 11% are above the break-even point, but that leaves 2,151 parcels, over 1/3 of all parcels that did not qualify for the RTE. And there could be different reasons for that, right? They could be second homes, they could be corporate-owned apartment complexes, they could be vacant land. Rich.
Could they be people that haven't applied?
And they could be people who have not applied.
No, plenty of those.
Well,
Yep.
and we would also, there are also going to be about 200 people eat houses a year that aren't going to qualify because they were bought in that year.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Yeah, there's some data that was provided by a gentleman who used to be on the assessors that showed that of those units, or that there are about 1,800 units that are not owner occupied, that are primary residences.
Oh, interesting.
Single family units. So though of that 2,100.
Meaning they are rented?
No, it wouldn't necessarily
Yeah.
be rented.
Right.
Or not, as an example, someone who has their first house in Vermont and their second house here in Concord. You know what I mean? For tax reasons.
Yeah.
That would be an example. So anyways, as we try to triangulate who's not applying, I thought that 1,800 figure was going to be useful.
So of the 21, whatever the number is, 2151, you're saying 1,800
roughly, the numbers aren't completely apples to apples.
1,800 or what? Sorry, it's a little hard to hear, John.
Yeah, this is the email, yeah.
Okay, so I forwarded an email from Jan. Who's one of the
Speak
board-
up so
Yeah,
everyone-
No, I just, this is an email, it was quoted, following that real estate tax exemption presentation. I followed up just to get an understanding of the board of assessors, following up on that 4,000 number, like,
Mhm.
is that really a good number? How did you get to it?
Mhm.
And in part of that response, he referenced that 1,800 were
Absentee owners.
absentee owners,
That's
and
the
I
word,
just,
yeah.
I just want to say that's where that statistic came
Yeah.
from, and I can forward it to all of you. I think like everything else, you need to dig and get to the bottom.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure how we dig.
I don't know either.
I can't-
Figured
I
it
don't know
out.
exactly where he got that from either.
Peeling apart that 2,000 though.
Yes.
that is I think a critical component. That's
Yes.
one of my
Yeah.
analyses, yeah.
Because speaking to the issue of what's the transfer of benefit versus those who pay more, it's actually not the 419 who are participating in the RTE with homes valued above the break-even point.
Yeah.
It's real, the bulk of this is being borne by the non-qualifying properties.
Yes.
And yes,
Right,
teasing
so
that-
can I
I
say,
know, that was really interesting.
so,
That was what.
hello,
Ellen,
so, slide 22, can you? So what I want to do is ask the, assessor for the non-qualifying parcels, dollars and parcels, try to elaborate who they are, what the value is if it's a single home, and anything they can do to characterize why they do not qualify.
right.
And so that's what I think John and Wendy are saying is that
Yeah.
1,800 of those are, did you use the
They're
word
absentee-
absentee?
Absentee owners. So they're people for whom Concord, my understanding or interpretation is people for whom Concord is not their primary residence.
Okay.
I've no, it's a, from some real estate database, I guess. Again,
Yeah.
we'll want to dig into all these numbers, but
Right.
I take 1,800 only the placeholder at this point in time, but I thought it was an interesting data point to. that
You
we
can
build off
invite
of.
him to your meeting too. Just be-
Yeah, but that includes renter, I just like, so absentee owners are individuals or entities who own property but do not live in it, which includes rental properties, vacation homes, or inherited properties where the owner lives elsewhere. So an absentee owner, if that's the way we're categorizing it, looks like it's rental plus
Interesting.
vacation homes.
Okay.
And so if that is the same category,
Yeah.
rentals plus vacation homes, I don't know if that's true. This is, like my 2-second Google, but if that's the same category, that's very unuseful to us who I presume would like to see rentals and vacation homes.
So
separate.
the point being, we need to dig deeper.
Yes.
All right,
And understand just what that term means.
correct.
The only other point I would make is that, and the big rental complexes are only one property in that 18, each one is only one property. The Muse is 250
Unit,
housing units,
Yeah.
but it's only one property.
right,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
Yeah. So it's actually,
Clearly for our final report, I would suggest that getting a more detailed inventory of the rental situation in town. At least identifying all of the large rental complexes and how many units there are would be very helpful. And I don't know whether that's something the housing community has or the assessor doesn't
So I
keep
started
detailed
doing that.
information on rental properties, I don't believe.
No, they don't.
But
This-
those who
this is
produce-
reference To another database, so I'll send that.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
you,
Okay.
and you guys can run with
we're
it.
gonna have to.
Okay. The housing production plan producers must know that, and I think there is an annex in the Concord Housing Production Plan that at least lists them. So I
They
think,
certainly list the number of rental units, but.
I think there's a
let me
listing
let
by
the
property.
HP.
Yeah, thank you. All right, other comments on the tax classification hearing data?
Yeah, I think we not really need to know units, we need
I
to
will
know
note that
dollars.
the select, sorry, Ellen, go for it.
We need to know not just units in all these categories, but the dollars of tax transfer.
Okay. Moving along, if there are no other comments on the tax classification hearing, John, do you have an update on the survey? Do we know how many completed surveys we now have?
There are about over 800 so far.
All right,
I peeled it apart a little bit actually last night just to look at our participation rate. We're a little bit low. We're in terms of distribution relative to the Concord. Not surprisingly, we're a little bit low in the 30 to 50 category, particularly the
age category?
Yeah, under 40 particularly, we're light on. And then from an income perspective, we are light on the very low income. We're kind of overweighted in the middle, and we're about right at the high end. So that actually is consistent with trying to get renters. I think if we get a renter number up to where it should be, because right now we've got 35 renters out of the 800, so it's way below the 25%.
Right.
If we move that to closer to 25%, that the lower income portion should be a higher portion of the responses then. That's how.
And I think it'll pull the younger people up too.
Yeah. So I think if we get to the renters, these numbers are going to become more representative. The other numbers will follow.
So I know that you tried to contact, what's the Prescott? Is the
Yeah.
current name, right?
Yeah.
I know that you tried to contact management there to ask whether you could distribute a flyer or something without success. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, they were, but I think we tried again now. They were concerned it would be considered soliciting. Well, actually, first I got hung up on, so I went there in person.
Yeah.
I think they thought I was lobbying, and so I went there in person. They were very kind and very open to it, but we're concerned about the soliciting part. I think now that we can tell them it's not considered soliciting, I'm happy to go back over, bring that email from the police chief, Ellen, and just say, are you fine with that? If people here are comfortable with that. And I'm happy to go to the other units too. I
was
didn't want
gonna
to go
say
to any
it's-
more units after I was
Sure.
told about the soliciting concern.
Sure. If you actually have clarification from an official source that this is not soliciting and rather is in the interest of the town, I would be in favor of you going back. Do others have thoughts, feelings on this?
Certainly would like to see more of them fill out a survey.
Yeah. And as you acknowledge, there are, I think, 27 apartment complexes in town. So we have some work
Yeah.
to try and get people to respond.
I was thinking one person I was going to, I don't know if there's any, maybe people here know, any coalition or group of landlords in Concord, like, and because, well, what I'm thinking about doing is reaching out to John Boynton, who's one of the landlords, residential landlords in town, and asking him to help get the surveys going, at least in his units. But also saying, do you have any loose affiliation with any of these other landlords?
Did you go to the business partnership?
There is a Concord business group that some landlords would be participating in. So that's maybe we just at least put this in front of, I can do that. Put it in front of the Concord business group,
Yeah, it's a business partnership, correct?
the business partnership. Yep.
The chamber, yeah.
Okay, great. I'll also reach out to John.
I mean, in the end, if the N of renters is very small, we either acknowledge how small it is, or and still analyze the 35 or whatever the number ends up being, or we don't consider, we talk about the fact that the RTE only focuses on homeowners, and we can't say anything about renters, other than what we can infer from secondary data.
But we'll
I mean, let's make an effort. No, but
I'm
just,
gonna push to get the 35 to 100 plus.
all right. That would be great.
Yeah.
That would be great.
One large complex that I think counts as rent in the HPP is Newbury Court. Now, John, you're right, we've got, a reasonable proportion of higher income. And we've got probably oversampling the elders. On the other hand, that's 300 households.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one place I could.
Yeah.
Though their housing costs are different, right? Because when you
Yeah,
pay your
that-
monthly fee,
I'm hesitating.
yeah,
Because their rent is very high, but
but
it
includes some meals,
yeah, meals and personal care and stuff like that, so,
no personal care.
Yeah, that's gonna be a little bit.
okay, so, I mean, that was kind of my reaction.
Yeah,
We've got to recognize that they will show up in data as
Mhm.
renters,
Mhm.
but
Rich,
they're,
you deduct, can you figure out what that dollar amount is?
What do you mean by dollar amount?
Like for our $7,000, how much of that is food, personal care?
Yeah, one could try to talk
Yeah.
to the management and see if they can give us a breakdown. They
I
may,
Did we,
they may be reluctant.
negotiated with them for some time around the compensation payments for the new development. They're pretty cagey.
Mhm.
did we try Wedgewood Common? I feel like there's a ton of kids out at that bus stop in the morning.
Yeah, Wedgewood Common would be on my list of
Mhm.
next
Okay.
places to
I just feel
contact.
like there's a lot of younger families there, given how busy that bus.
When I turn in from Main Street to come here, there's the former Welch's headquarters that is now, is that mostly condos or also rentals?
Office. Still office.
No, there's.
Those
a-
are mostly owned. I mean, they can be rented, but most of them are
Are condos.
condos.
Yeah, all right.
The other, there's the Concord Crossing. There's a building in West Concord that as you go up
Right next to
Conan.
Rite Aid.
Conan Street, yep. There's Wedgewood Commons. I'm trying to think. There's Hawthorne Village. There's some. I'm just wondering if we send a follow-up postcard or something out to the addresses of some of the complexes. I know we've already done that once, but short of a hard address, I'm not sure how else we reach those specific residences.
Yeah, I don't think we have time to do another postcard and get it out. Not to mention the cost.
If I just if I get approval and can put a bunch of signs up at these places, I won't be bashful.
So
Good for you.
for the 6 of us who are here, do we agree that John should crusade in this area? I see Abby nodding. I see Shannon nodding. I see a thumbs up from Ellen. I'm certainly in favor.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
anything to,
So crusade away.
Sounds good.
Let's turn to what kind of data do we tease out of the survey? I know that Kathy and Ellen gave us suggested analytics that go beyond the survey. Some of it was tables that we'd like to get from the assessor at some point, filling in from the data that was just presented at the tax classification hearing. I also put some thoughts together on what I'd like to pull just out of the survey. My first question was, how representative is the survey vis-a-vis the town? And I think you were starting to do that just now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. The renters are the big piece that's missing. right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. But age distribution, owners versus renters distribution, income distribution, how many people actually applied for the RTE versus did not? That might be a percentage we could also tease out of this versus what we know from Meredith's data, from the assessor's data. But then clearly, I think we all agreed that the most important metric we're looking to calculate is what percentage of income do housing costs and specifically property taxes represent. And we should be able to pull that out of the survey results. But I'd like to break that out, right? Owners versus renters, people with mortgages versus people who own their homes outright, people under the age of 65 versus over, people with homes. Unfortunately, the way we broke out assessed values, we didn't hit
No,
the
I-
break-even point.
saw that
I
last
know,
night.
I
was
know.
so annoyed.
Me too. So I guess I would say people with homes under 2 million versus with homes over 2 million. Seniority, duration of residence in town, people who have lived here less than 10 years, sort of middle, and then maybe more than 30 years would be another interesting breakdown. Anyway, I can distribute this too. Did others have strong, and then each question, obviously, we want to look at the overall result, but then I think for each question, we want to break it out in a number of different ways.
Yeah.
the one thing I've been thinking about, but I'm not quite sure how you do it. Accepting John's point that there are a lot of people who are homeowners with less than 30% housing costs. But how much less? In other words, I am more concerned about targeting if we're giving a lot of money to people who don't need it than if we're giving small amounts in order to reach the people that we want to reach. So what I'm thinking is maybe you have to do it by, block of, by segments of valuation,
Mhm.
and then look at, what percentage in each of those valuation segments is challenged or is close to challenged. And then we can calculate roughly what the transfer to the people in that group is, since we know what the shift.
So to answer that, or to depict that in graphs, in part, we would need data from the assessor, right? RTE qualification, not just under 2.4, but in different housing value segments. We would need from the assessor, and then we could impose or lay on top of that.
We need, in other words, we know if you have a home at, $1 million, we know how much is being transferred to you. Or, how much.
We can calculate the exemption
Yeah.
and therefore the savings.
So I don't know, I mean, this is looking at the survey, obviously, so since we don't know who it is, I don't know whether there's any need to go back to the assessor. What I'm wondering is, are there a bunch of people who, yes, they're getting a benefit, but they're getting a very small benefit,
Mhm.
while the folks with the $500,000 houses, hypothetically, maybe 50% of them need it and they're getting a big benefit.
Yeah.
Versus, there's a whole bunch of people who don't need it, who are getting a couple $1,000s. Yeah, that's my concern.
Would you like to start playing with an Excel spreadsheet to lay that out?
I think if we follow the dollars, I think if we do what Ellen was talking about, which is actually calculate the dollars, what Rich is gonna talk about is naturally coming out, but I agree, we absolutely need to do that. Ultimately, this needs to be dollars, not just units, because the impact on a unit can be very different.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Check and work
one of
with you.
this, go ahead, Ellen.
I can help work with whoever wants to do it, to put together a table and figure out where to get the data.
Okay.
Because I agree, it's like, I think we're gonna have a lot between $1 million and the break even. A lot of numbers, but not a lot of dollars.
All right.
Mhm. That's gonna be interesting to see.
I just wanted to point out, I think that what just came up is in line with something that was in the minutes about Cameron McKinnott had written about, that the distribution is going to the wrong places. So just wanted to note that.
Yeah, he left those slides with us at the beginning of the last meeting and then had to leave and so couldn't speak to his slides. But we noted that they were dropped off, and you're right. I mean, that's one of the concerns that was expressed at the tax classification hearing as well. All right, anything else on survey analytics right now?
I would just think, but I think we'll be able to deal with that 2 to 2.99 million issue. We can work through it.
Okay.
We'll come up with a distribution that gets us to 2.4 and above.
All right. But this leads us into a discussion of the ongoing work program between now and, I guess, January, when we really do need to start writing. What other gaps do we see in our knowledge base?
Well, I actually, in terms of other numbers, other analysis to do on the data, you highlighted this up front. Peeling apart the 2.9 million is a critical one. Not from the survey again, but data on the correlation between landlord tax increases and rent increases. There are all sorts of studies out there. I just want to make sure we're pulling those in, because that is a question mark, I know.
I'm going to get back to that when we talk about Harwich in a minute, because I finally understand how their use of clause 5.0 works.
Yeah.
It's not what we've been thinking.
Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, that's everything else here. Actually, listing trend, real estate listing trends by value over time, right? So in other words, have we seen a spike, a meaningful spike? And when I say meaningful, it has to be like not a small amount, but a meaningful spike in the volume of sales or volume of listings maybe is better, volume of listings in various value groups over the past several years. I think people will want to see that.
Absolutely. And Abby, we're obviously looking to you for that insight. I don't know, Abby, if you've started thinking about how you want to organize your section, but I agree with John, that kind of historical analysis of, has demand shifted or has supply shifted of listings or requests for lower valued properties or higher valued properties? What trends are we seeing?
Yes, working on that. So my section will have both local and national trends in real estate, including, those types of data points. What types of listings are we seeing? Which brackets are we shifting in supply and demand?
Okay, great. I know in terms of understanding other property tax relief programs, I had, as you all may recall, I had put that draft table together, which needs to be refined, updated, and then turned into narrative for a section. We will get more information on the affordable rental properties clause, hopefully next week when we talk to the Harwich assessor and a member of the Board of Assessors. And I guess I'll just jump in and say that we've been in touch with them. They're happy to meet with us. We're just setting a time for Rich and I to talk to them. But what is now clear to me from the application form and from the descriptions that I've seen online is they expect the property tax relief to go to the owner of the rental property because they expect to see from the applicant a rental contract that shows that the rental unit is being leased at an affordable rate. That's the way the benefit goes to the renter.
Oh,
So
I see.
the rental fee
Kind of-
already,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that was like, a light bulb went off in
Yeah.
my head.
So that
You have to.
It's the
like,
property,
rent it
it's the
then.
property owner who gets the exemption if they can show a rental contract at an affordable rate and the renter, their income doesn't exceed, I think it's 125% of AMI.
Interesting.
So that's the way they do it. Because we kept saying, how do you ensure that the landlord will pass the benefit on? Well, that's how they do it. They make sure that
they're saying this, we'll give you this break because we know this apartment is affordable to
that's
this
right.
current rent.
That's right.
So it doesn't get us around the problem of somebody's got to look at the renter's tax.
No, it does not. They have to submit their tax return.
Right.
Yes.
Which is,
But yeah, the landlords would have to reprice their rents, right?
well, no, they
First-
don't have to if they're already there.
Oh, if they're already, yeah, the people, for the ones that aren't already there, they'd have to adjust rent. Yeah, you're right, for the ones that are there, they're good.
But, and any break they get is going to depend on their showing that a particular unit is being rented at a, at a.
And rented year round. That's the other
And that
qualification.
obviously is. a big-
Is the anti-Airbnb clause, right?
Clearly.
So anyway, we'll learn more on that. They say that their exemption program is different than the one in Provincetown, and so we can explore that a little bit with them. Anyway, that will help round out my understanding of the other tax relief programs. And Wendy, you had said before we started the meeting that the number of people who actually participate in the tax deferral program is two.
Two, I thought you said.
We can't even focus.
Yep,
on-
Two.
it is.
So
2
Harvard.
out of 7,000.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of it may just be people don't know about these things.
Yes, I think that's all fair.
So Harwich has a really nice, unfortunately, I couldn't bring it up again. The link was broken or something when I tried to send you all information. But Harwich has a really nice 2-pager listing the 11 different tax relief programs. And I find our assessor's website incredibly obtuse. So I've already started drafting something similar to what Harwich does, you know, asking a leading question. Are you over 65 and experiencing financial hardship? Anyway, doing something that we could put as an annex in our report. Yeah, exactly, exactly. So I thought the way they handled it was much clearer. So there you have much of what I was hoping we would talk about today. Did I send around the draft language for the town annual report? Did I include that in my
Yeah, I
packet?
think you do.
I didn't print it out, so that's why I'm unsure. And if so, are there comments on that? It was a pretty basic description that I was going to put to
That
Donna.
was what, you know, we
It's basically
weren't prefiguring any results. It was just, what have we done?
what have we done so far is what I talk about. And then I say analysis of the survey results and secondary data will take place in early 2026. We will provide a written report to the select board by the end of March 2026. Reread that if you haven't already, and if there are comments, send them back to me, and we'll take a picture in early January when we're all together and can submit that to Donna. It's gonna be a short meeting.
One thing I wondered we ought to do either this week or next week is work backwards from when we're supposed to report.
Yes,
Because having lived through one of the 22-29 Main Street reports, I mean, we knew what we were gonna say 3 months before we.
well, you have to in
I
order to
think
write,
that-
yeah.
And that says to me, and I mean, we've got to do the analysis of the survey, and I'm still hoping we could do the ACS Puma
Mhm.
analysis. But, you know, when do we need drafts of components that aren't conclusions? When do we need to reach conclusions,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
When do we, because I'm worrying that all of a sudden it's gonna be the end of February.
Yes,
And
no,
we're
no,
still
no.
arguing about
Right.
what our conclusion is,
Right.
and yet then we've still got to write it and edit it.
So my gut is we should wait until early January to to tease through survey results and decide where we stand. I think there are certain sections of the reports that each of us could already be writing.
Yeah, I
If
mean,
we-
I think once we talk to Harwich, we could write the,
Tax relief,
for the options.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm assuming Abby can do a lot of the.
Real estate analysis, right. Shannon, I'm assuming you're writing something up on the qualitative.
Yeah, I can
explanation
send
we
it pretty
did?
shortly. I'm almost done.
Okay, all right. Kathy is not here, but I know Kathy and Ellen and John are very engaged in the survey analysis. That will be a section of the report, obviously, if not a major section of the report. I don't have the
Do you want,
outline in front of me.
okay, yeah. To that point, on that 2.9 million,
Yeah,
and digging
Yeah.
into that. Ellen, do you want a team on that? Yep, okay, cool. I'll follow up and we'll start working on that, because that's gonna be, I think that'll be an important part of the quant that we'll want to talk through.
I assume that involves going back and sitting with Meredith.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah. And then at some point, if it's useful to speak with the gentleman you mentioned earlier, we can do that as well. He and David Carr had also sent to me analysis that he had done when he was on the BOA. Yeah,
Maybe you want to queue him up,
Yeah,
come in January for your next meeting or some other meeting.
yeah, to
Yeah.
understand who doesn't qualify.
Yeah, the other thing I just want to ask questions is as it relates to Meredith,
Mhm.
because this is a very busy time for them. They're gonna get the bills out for January.
Yeah,
And then they move right into abatement season where they're gonna be receiving abatement requests. But
okay.
I guess my question is, are you anticipating, I know there's a lot of tables here. Are you anticipating sort of structuring a request to her for a series of data? Or do you want to get just raw data from her? I'm not sure what.
I'd rather raw data.
The problem with getting the raw database is there are all these different housing codes. And I'm very sensitive to us not doing it correctly.
Yeah, no, I've done that. It's really difficult. Kathy and I both have tried to analyze the database, and both of us just want to make a consolidated request to the assessor's office.
I think that's the better way to go.
Yeah.
Figure out what we want,
Because
give them one.
I-
Yeah,
I think it's really important that whatever we propose, whatever we present, aligns exactly with what the assessor presented at the classification here.
yes, agree.
So it might be worth like a pre-meeting, so you're planning it because she's gonna be working hard. They're moving into the busy season, so I just want them to consider, you can give her a heads up.
Yeah.
And maybe, this might be Ellen, you and Dawn sort of meeting and saying, here's the kind of things we want to look at. Is it possible?
Yeah.
So you're vetting it before you make the formal request.
Yeah. and
Oh, that's
we
a good tip.
prioritize. Here are the things
Yeah,
that are
yeah,
most
yeah.
important.
Yeah.
These are nice to have.
Yeah.
Okay, I can set up that meeting.
One other thing I'm thinking.
I'm sorry, Ellen, say that
No,
again.
I can set up that meeting, me, John, Wendy, and Kathy.
Okay, Wendy, you want to be a part of that?
Sure, if it helps.
Sure, sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
agree.
And just be aware, she may not be able to do it until after the first. because
Okay.
getting it filled out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's just important for us
Yeah,
to
yeah,
start
I know her.
queuing up our work program.
The other thing that I'm thinking we need to have in there, and maybe it's just a one-page box, but is other towns, particularly Lexington, since everybody's gonna say, why did we do it when Lexington decided not to do it?
Mhm.
But then I think we have to talk about, the Marlboroughs.
Yeah.
Which didn't do it for a good reason or got out of it, and
And the
Burlingtons
Sudburys.
who were happy with it.
hmm
And it looks like other people are taking on other things. I'd be willing to draft.
If you
that.
could start drafting that, that'd be great.
Did you talk to Lexington?
We did.
You did.
Yeah.
Yeah, to one person in Lexington. We then tried to get more information from them on their survey, and that just fizzled out because the survey was so long ago and people weren't really willing to chat.
But we're getting a lot of citizens asking about the RTE,
Mhm.
and they just approved 10 housing projects. They're gonna bring 1,000 units into Lexington, so they've got a lot of things going on there, so.
Not to mention the $660
Yeah.
million high school.
I
Yeah.
know, yeah.
When is that vote? Today, yesterday?
Yeah, it's Monday. It's actually Monday.
This coming Monday?
They're the votes.
660?
Yeah, it's
Yeah, well, they also expanded the size of it to anticipate some of the growth in housing too.
well, that was one of the concerns raised in the article,
Yeah,
right? That
yeah,
it
yeah.
wasn't size appropriate.
Although
But right now it's sized for 600 and they've got 2,000 something. Crazy.
It may, well, things may be really sensitive. I was about to say, it may be worth reaching out to the gentleman with whom we spoke last time to hear if there are any updates in thinking about the RTE
with the
with everything going on.
likely tax increase.
You know what, I raise it only because the chair, it's the chair not, but a selectman called me about the Concord experience with 10%.
Interesting. Interesting.
Because people were asking, now they had their rate hearing, so they moved on, they did not vote it, but
Okay.
he was inquiring because other people had started to ask.
Interesting.
Hmm.
All right. So for our next meeting, let's focus specifically on our writing program, our analysis and writing program. And maybe we begin to talk about conclusions. Although, as I said a moment ago, I think it's best to do that more fully once we have survey results.
Yeah, I think Ellen, you, Kathy and I should, between now and the next meeting, finalize the model that we're gonna be using to track the dollars. I think we have most of it there, but I want to, so that we can all just get comfortable with it.
Yeah, that would be useful.
Plot structure for people to look at.
Yeah, that would be useful to see next time. The next meeting is scheduled for evening. Kathy raised with me, she said she has a holiday engagement that evening and therefore, again, won't be able to join us. Do we still want it to be an evening meeting on the 18th, or could we do a morning meeting, was her question to me.
I'm unavailable that evening as well for the same reason, but the morning would work for me if it matters.
I actually got into.
Either are fine with me,
I could do
as long
it.
as it's this time.
Having said
Okay.
that, I think I have, hold on. No, the only thing, yeah, I'm available in the morning as well. Rich, how about you?
This is the 18th.
Yeah, 2 weeks from now.
I might be on Zoom, but I can be there.
Okay. So should we shift it to morning?
That's great.
Yeah, I'll resend the invite right now to
All right,
8:30.
thank you. And I'll have to make sure we can get the meeting room. All right. Any other comments, Wendy, from the select board?
No, I covered most of it. And I'll send on, actually, I was looking then, I did send you the email from Jonas.
Okay, to
it was-
me or to
I
everybody?
think I sent it to you and Ellen,
Okay,
and then I separately sent it to John because of the subsequent.
We had a coffee.
all right, I'll circulate it then. And I will also circulate this email from a gentleman suggesting other kinds of analysis that he thinks would be useful. Rather than just reading it, I think we should send it. It's better to wrap your head around it. All right, anyone else online who has joined us for this meeting who would like to make comments? Now is your time. Hello, Scott. Can you hear us? And I believe you're
I
unmuted.
can. Can you hear me?
Yes, awesome.
Great. First of all, thanks very much for all the work you're doing, and especially all your number crunching and data analysis. I think it's really, really important as you do. I'd just like to provide a little information that I suspect you already know, but there are two groups of towns that tend to involve themselves in the real estate tax exemption. One are the tourist towns, if you will, or the towns that have vacation homes, and Concord certainly doesn't fall into that group. And the other group are towns with high renters. Two of the towns that do have high renters and are involved in the RTE are Cambridge and Brookline. Concord is also involved. I wanted to share with you the numbers, the percentage of homeowners, or sorry, households within each of those three communities that are renters versus homeowners. So in Concord, 76% of the households are homeowners and 24% are renters. In Brookline, 46% of the households are homeowners and 54%, more than half, are renters. And in Cambridge, 34% of the households are homeowners and 66% are renters. So I suspect you all already knew that, but I thought it might be helpful to emphasize the significant difference between other towns who have elected to adopt the RTE and Concord from a demographic point of view. The source of those data are the American Community Survey, which is, as you know, a subset of the U.S. Census Bureau, data from the U.S. Census Bureau. So that was one thought. The second thought I wanted to make about numbers. Numbers are very, very important. And as I said at the beginning, I'm very, very happy that you're really focusing on the numbers and crunching them. It is also important to be very careful about not spinning numbers or using numbers to promote your own bias. Recently, I heard someone stand up and say that, well, maybe taxes in Concord aren't that bad, because if you look at our mill rate, it's not as high as Sudbury, it's not as high as Acton. I can't remember their exact words, but the point was, our mill rate isn't that bad compared to other communities. Well, that may be true. But if you do an analysis of specifically Sudbury and Acton and Concord, and you take the total tax burden of each of those towns and you divide it by the population of people aged 25 and above in town, you will find that Concord pays more per capita than either Acton or Sudbury, both of whom have higher mill rates. So someone uses the mill rate to spin the idea that our taxes are not too high. That may be an example of misleading an audience. The second way of looking at those data is to take the total tax burden and divide it by the number of households, not per capita. And when you divide the tax burden of those three towns by the number of households, again, you see that the taxes per household in Concord are higher than either Sudbury or Acton.
And this
So
was
I
in the
just
bridge.
share that information.
I don't know if you saw this same, what exactly you're speaking about was in the bridge this past week, the median. There was an article in the bridge this past week that demonstrated your point. It did not have the mill rates, but it did have the median tax bill, which in Concord is much higher, even though our mill rate is lower.
Median or average, Shannon?
It
I
said
believe-
average, and this was part of my problem with the article, is that I couldn't tell if they meant mean or median.
It was average, which.
It says the word
means
average,
mean.
which is not a word that I mean, you would assume
Well,
that they're
average,
using it for
average
mean.
means mean.
I know, I trust me, I know as I teach this, but people use that word wrong all the time because I actually don't know if it's the mean.
So Wendy and I both served on the finance committee with a director who
It is the
constantly
mean.
reinforced to us
Okay.
that given the skewed distribution of property values in town, one really needs to focus on median,
I agree.
not on mean. And
I
so
agree.
I saw that article and kind of didn't pay a whole lot of attention because that data point is itself biased.
I agree. I sent Ellen an email about this actually, but I just wanted to point out that I appreciate your point that mill rate and tax bill are different, and the bridge noted that this week.
Sorry, Scott, we're having a discussion already on your observations. Was there other information you would like to impart?
No, those were the 2 points I wanted to make, and I'm glad you're discussing those observations. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I guess I would also react by saying that the mill rate is not a biased observation in the sense that if you're a person trying to afford your first home and you know you can afford a mortgage on a home of 800,000, let's just pick that number for the point of the example, you then look at what the tax bill is going to be in different towns by the tax rate, by the mill rate. And so it is another observation that same value home will cost you more in property taxes or less, depending on the tax rate of the particular town. So I think it's important to provide all data and to explain what each data point means.
Lynn, I would
I agree. And
concur. Yeah, just from the real estate standpoint, that when people are selecting homes and looking across towns like Sudbury, Acton, and Concord, they are often basing their affordability on the house price plus the mill rate.
Yes, and your point, Lynn, I think is excellent. You have to present all data, look at all data, explain all data, and not cherry pick data and say, well, our taxes aren't too bad. Our mill rate is lower than Sudbury and Acton, when in fact, you get much more house for your dollar in both of those communities. And secondly, I believe that the per capita and the per household taxes are less.
No, I think
So,
those will
for
be
example,
interesting
if you were
numbers to
to I haven't done this analysis, but if you were to analyze the square foot rate rather than the mill rate, I think you'd find those communities are also lower. So the people people pay taxes and households pay taxes. And in the communities mentioned, Concord's people and households pay more for the services they receive from the town than than the other two. So
which is
mill
a
rate can
broader
be
issue than the issue we've been asked to look at, right? How much Concord's town meeting approves and budgets is an important discussion for the public, but it's not our charge to decide if we overpay for services in town.
And Scott,
I
agree
would
with you.
argue.
When we share numbers, though, to your original point, we'll be careful about how we share them in an objective, unbiased manner versus, as an example, just showing one number, we'll do what Lynn recommended. So your broader point is taken, Scott.
The other about data, when you start looking at towns, things like cities have a differential between the residential and the commercial property, et cetera. So you can't.
They have a
do
split
apples to
rate.
apples. It's very different.
And so does,
Sudbury.
Sudbury,
They do,
Yeah.
yeah. So you can't look at any town
They
without
tax-
looking at all
they
of them.
tax commercial.
Yeah.
And Lexington taxes,
Yes, they do.
taxes commercial
I just,
by rate.
it's very common with cities, but these other towns, you have to look at that.
Right, right. But I think we need to be careful as we do our analysis and write a report that we don't overreach. We're not trying to solve all problems of affordability
Yeah,
in town.
yeah, right. I totally agree with you. I think we don't want to get sucked into are we paying too much for town services? I mean, that's a total.
It's an important question,
Yeah,
but
it's
it's
not
not,
our-
exactly. Other comments from others in the Zoom community here? Other comments from liaisons who were attending with us? Oh, I'm sorry, I see Mark has his hand up. Go ahead,
Just a
please.
Quick question. So I think that one of the things I've been thinking about, and I apologize a little bit late for this call, but and I don't know how much of your analysis is thinking about how the RT affects behavior. I actually think it does. And one of the reasons why I think about looking at per capita, per household expense is that I think, and again, it's just my own personal view, that the RT has shaded or distorted the larger population's focus on town spending. And I think there's a deferral going on where people in the higher assessed homes are seeing that in their tax bills that have gone up 20, 25, 30%, tax bills, not assessments. But on the lower assessed homes, because the RT has given let's just call it a subsidy or a break, they haven't felt that with their pocketbook. But I think if you look at per capita spending, and I think it's unquestionable that Concord spends much more per capita than these other towns, I think the RT is affecting behavior. I've said that publicly. I said it to the select board at the tax classification meeting. And I'm hoping that it is within your purview to do some analysis specifically looking at per capita as it relates to how people think at town meeting, how they vote, how select board members may think about it. Because I think at the end of the day, although the RT may mask the effects of increased town spending for some shorter period, if you look out 5 or 10 years and look at the trajectory, and I'm on the land use committee, I'm not speaking on behalf, but we know expenses are coming. We know where the trajectory is. My concern is the RT does affect behavior. So please pay particular attention to per capita behavior, per capita cost.
Yeah, it'll be interesting for us to look at the survey results because we asked questions about support for the RTE and support for the idea of redistributing tax burden across households. And it will be interesting to see how that cuts for people responding with homes below 2.4 versus people with homes above 2.4 million.
So Wendy, just a quick follow-up comment. So I've received maybe a half a dozen emails or texts from people who just got started filling out the survey, and then when it started asking for income and other sort of financial data, just weren't comfortable. So I hope the survey proves to be informative on an even basis. I do have some concerns that the way the survey is, and I understand why it was, but there are a number of people who start doing the survey and unfortunately choose not to finish it. And I do think that's probably not a great thing in any
Mark, one of the
We
things that
should
we're
have
doing-
numbers on that though, right?
Yeah, Mark, I was gonna say, one of the things that we're doing is we're looking at town distribution on various demographics relative to our responses to the survey and making sure they're roughly matching up. And right now on income distribution, where we're light is actually at the lower income side of things. But we're looking at all that to make sure that we're representative, and to the extent that it's not representative, we adjust the weighting appropriately.
But also, don't we have abandonment rate? So like, I mean,
I don't think so.
we can't get abandonment rate from the survey?
I
How many
don't
people
think
start
we
but
have
don't
that,
finish?
no.
Oh, bummer.
I mean, I will just say that the survey is completely anonymous. And if people are given that, if people are still uncomfortable giving that data, that's their choice not to participate. But thanks for the input.
Yeah, I just want to respond to what Mark said, and I am very tuned in on a personal level, but also real estate level on the behavior that taxes affect. We see it as we increase resources in Concord, like building a new high school or having improvements in some of our public spaces or common areas that we actually make the town more attractive and more expensive. So we get into a behavior loop with people, and we end up, the spending in Concord is relevant. The amount of spending overall is relevant. That it's, I think I'll try to capture what I can in the national and regional trends and how Concord compares to other Metro West towns that are similar. But I do think we need to be cognizant of how adding taxes affects the behavior and the spending, or the from philanthropic to, deciding whether they sell their home, of the population, and how that affects our overall financial health of the town.
I mean, I think what I hear Mark saying is that people who benefit from the RTE, which of the people qualifying for the RTE, the vast majority are folks who've seen a benefit, and that they may vote differently at town meeting on town budgets and school budgets as a result of that benefit. That's what I hear him suggesting. And
Yeah,
I
and
guess what I hear you saying, Abby, is that if I followed that, spending to improve public facilities, for example, which does raise our tax burden, does have the intended, it has the consequence of making Concord a more desirable place to move to because of the more modern facilities. Am I putting words in your mouth, Abby, or is that where you were going?
No, and I think the two overlap. That, just in general, behavior is related to people's, their affordability, but also what they're getting for that money. So I just think we need to consider shifting the tax burden may have other effects on, for example, how people vote in town meeting. I guess what I'm saying is I agree with Mark wanting to dive a little deeper into the behavior results of adding taxes to individuals at any level.
Mark?
Yeah, so these discussions are hard, and I don't mean to make them personal. So for me, I'm just looking for an answer to the question that we're 12 months into a year, and there's been not one discussion at the select board level as to set up a task force to think about how bringing in more revenue, to start thinking about how to curb spending. And I know there is a meeting next Tuesday with the town manager to go over budgets. And I'm not looking for solutions or silver bullets. I'm just looking for topics where the select board talks about it in the greater audience of public hearing, so it's on someone's radar. So for me, we have 5 select board members. It's on one person's radar, and I'm scratching my head saying, I would think it would be on everyone's radar, not maybe their number one topic, but at least should be on one of 12 agendas, and it hasn't hit any agendas. So I'm not drawing connections between the assessment of your home as to how you prioritize tax spending. I would just use it as an example that there are a lot of topics that the select board chooses to act on. In this specific topic, how do we control spending, how do we deal with fiscal sustainability, hasn't hit one agenda.
All right, point noted. Thank you. Ellen, did you?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think it's really important. Mark, your comments are, core. I think the decisions in town, but I think we need to really, as Lynn has said, cordon off what we're supposed to make that comment, but be very clear that that's not the role of our task force to solve spending problems. But I like the concept of potentially trying to figure out different cohorts of people by income, by assessment, in terms of those who are benefit from the RTE and whether that means that they're less sensitive to spending.
Yeah, and Ellen, I would just point out that as a tax program, the RTE is trying to solve a problem that maybe, in conjunction with what Mark's saying,
Yeah.
if we're determining that it doesn't actually target the right people or the right way of helping affordability, that it contributes to this idea that that we need to look at the overall fiscal responsibility of the town. And so while we're not really tasked with coming up with alternatives, I do think that that we need to, our task force has a responsibility to look at the larger picture.
No, I
I would
agree.
also add that it
it's
is
more-
go ahead.
I think
Ellen.
it's more a matter of trying to, Abby, you'll probably be able to articulate it pretty well in terms of behavior of people who come in, either new buyers or people who want to sell. And also this survey does have a little bit of, open-ended questions that could help. I think it's a key issue that we need to address right on. I don't mean not to address it, but rather to put the question out there and to be resolved not by our task force, but by the select board and by bringing in additional revenue sources in town or other issues that aren't the purview of
Also,
our task force.
it's budget guideline season at the Finance Committee, a 15-person board who thinks quite seriously about controlling spending. And in previous years, we've seen debates go all the way to town meeting as the Finance Committee takes an opinion on spending that differs from the overall town meeting. So anyway, stay tuned. There's certainly conversations underway. The guidelines have not yet been issued. Is that
No,
right?
This is the time. On
This-
the 11th is the target and the select board discussion on budgets. It's, as Mark said, on Tuesday.
Okay, all right. Great. Thank you. Any other comments from the room, so to speak? Carlin?
Carlin Reed, member of the Finance Committee, speaking on my own behalf, just to let you folks know, we're going to be setting our final guidelines this coming week, December 11, at our meeting, which begins at 6:30. Please join us.
There we go. Thank you very much, Carly. Anything else for discussion today? Scott, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Lynn. Yes, just one quick comment. Lynn, you pointed out how a neighboring town had an excellent description of the opportunities for people to adjust their taxes and how it's difficult sometimes in Concord for people to know what those opportunities are. So I think the idea of making people more aware of opportunities is excellent and should be, you may want to consider as a recommendation.
Oh, trust me,
when you
we
do
are.
your report. Yeah, the other thing I would mention is the Hugh Cargill Trust.
Absolutely, it's on the list.
And by the way, they're funding requests out, so I hope you're all listening.
Yeah, very good. My point about the Hugh Cargill Trust is to advertise to people who may not personally benefit from the Hugh Cargill Trust, but who may be in a position to make donations to the Hugh Cargill Trust. There's not a huge amount of dollars that go from residents to the Hugh Cargill Trust. I don't want to minimize the dollars, but it's not a huge amount of dollars compared to the amount of money that's redistributed with the real estate tax exemption. So for example, imagine the way that the Hugh Cargill Trust could help people in Concord who are truly in need, independent of the senior rules, all those senior programs. Independent of that, think about how many people who truly need help could be helped if the people in Concord who received benefit from the real estate tax exemption, which I suspect is a large number of people, yet don't really need it, took the money that they got from the real estate tax exemption that they really didn't need, it really wasn't intended for them, and they made a donation in that amount to the Hugh Cargill Trust. That could perhaps have a great effect on helping people in our town who need it. Or if the real estate tax exemption were eliminated entirely and people were strongly encouraged to be generous with programs like the Hugh Cargill
I
Trust.
believe a letter goes out annually
The
to
letter goes out and it just went out.
Okay.
And so actually, once every 3 years, it goes to all residents. We changed the timing last March. It was not productive. So just recently it went to all residents in town. And remember, the Hugh Cargill Trust is a trust, but there's a subcategory, which is the tax relief program, which is the $425
right per
per
quarter.
quarter. So, yeah, and it's the other challenge with the Hugh Cargill Trust is we don't have an easy way to donate. So you can't like just push a button and say donate.
Mm.
So we, encouraging the user donated funds through other organizations, but we're also looking at technically a better way to ease the ability to make that contribution,
Okay,
which is significant. So,
okay, all right. So thank you, Scott, and thank you, Wendy.
Set up.
Well, it is, except for we're in the middle of a municipal conversion. So it means moving a whole bunch of accounting out of one bank into another. So that's part of the challenge.
Yeah,
So they're
just
working on it. I
Having done
get
it for the Housing Foundation.
Yeah, no, I know, but it has to do with our internal structure.
Sorry.
With it. I've tried now a couple of years.
All right,
Yeah.
duly noted. Thank you, one and all. I don't see any other hands up, and therefore I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks all.
Thank you all.